Electricast. A Liberty Seguros agora é Yellow. Tudo aquilo que já era bom continua igual. Excelência e proximidade permanecem como nossa essência. Porque não é uma mudança, é uma evolução. A Yellow está sempre em sintonia com você. É liberdade com segurança. A melhor experiência acessível a todos os clientes, iluminando cada passo da sua jornada. Deixe essa luz iluminar seu caminho. Yellow Seguradora. Seguro para viver livre. Consulte seu corretor.
Quer desenvolver os talentos da sua equipe e potencializar os resultados da sua empresa? Conte com a expertise do atendimento corporativo do Senac São Paulo, que já capacitou mais de 1 milhão de pessoas e profissionais de instituições públicas, privadas e terceiro setor. Construa uma equipe altamente motivada e capacitada e destaque-se no mercado. Entre em contato, acesse sp.senac.br/corporativo e saiba mais. Quer saber? Senac.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to our Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and I'm thrilled to be speaking with my next guest. Today, we're talking with someone who is incredibly special to me. She is Amanda Silvas. Amanda helps women turn emotional self-love healing into a lifestyle. She is a trauma-informed self-love and relationship coach. Her self-love programs, events, and one-on-one coaching have impacted over 1,000 plus women's lives worldwide. She runs a coaching and speaking practice alongside her husband, James Silvas. Their podcast, Be That 1%, is in the top 1% globally and listened to in over 70 plus countries. She's currently getting her master's in therapy at UNLV's School of Medicine and is pursuing her licensure as a marriage and family therapist, specializing in sexual assault, trauma, and sex therapy. She uses therapeutic techniques from NFT, IFS, EFT, and attachment theory in her coaching. Her most important job and title is mom to 2 little boys, Aiden and Oakley. I am really excited to have Amanda with us today and equally excited that we get to dive into more about what she does. So let's get started. Welcome, Amanda. I'm thrilled to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much. I don't know why I got teary-eyed during that.
Oh, well, you mean so much to me. You've changed my life, and we'll talk about that. But before we dive into your current work, I love beginning by learning about my guests' early experiences. But I do know your story because we've known each other 6 years now. It's hard to believe how much time has passed by. But for the sake of our listeners, could you share with us some highlights from your childhood and your journey to where you are today without going too deep into what you do? And then after that, we'll explore your current projects and achievements.
Okay. I am the oldest of 3 girls. I think that's so important because there's certain attributes about the oldest child. I'm that typical, I want to take care, I want to nurture, I want to be in charge, I want to lead, I want to support, I want to help. Those are all big things about who I am. And I think it's because of the environment I got raised in as the oldest. And I'm very close with my younger sisters, very close with my parents. Growing up, my mom didn't have that soft nurturing that maybe some moms may have. I always wanted her to come into my room and lay on the bed and just ask me about my day, ask me about my friends, boyfriend, all of those things. And so I kind of never had that. And I think that's why I feel nurturing is one of my greatest assets, is because I didn't have that when I was younger. And it's something that I've cultivated and focused so much on. Although my parents are amazing and they instilled some amazing values and morals around family values and what it means to be a great person, that soft nurturing wasn't always there. It was more about achievement. And I think because of that, perfectionism, challenging yourself, growth, all of those things were so dominant in myself when I was younger. And they definitely are very dominant in myself now as an adult. more consciously aware of them now too. I grew up in Las Vegas. I'm born and raised here. This is where I am now and my family and everything, and where we're going to be for a little bit more time while I'm in school and all of those things. I met my husband when we were in college. We are college sweethearts. We were both studying kinesiology, and that's what I have my bachelor's degree in, which is so incredibly important to because I started with this whole concept of understanding the body, and now I'm in this whole concept of understanding the mind, and I just think they go so importantly together. And so having those both backgrounds. And when I was in college, I met a professor named Dr. Mark Guadagnoli, and he just changed my perspective and outlook on life. Like one of his first classes, like everybody stand up, go out into the hall. And so we're like, okay, here we are in college, a college class. And so we go outside and we're like, what the heck is he making us come outside? He goes, we all carry baggage, invisible baggage. And before you walk into this class, I want you to release all that so that you can be present and learn to think for yourself. So we're like, and he goes, when you feel like you're ready, come back in. We all look at each other like, what? Okay, so let's stand up a little taller. Let's release some of that. Take a deep breath. I don't know. I'm 19, 20 years old. So we go back in class. We sit quietly. We're attentive. And he goes, you feel that? That's presence. Let's begin. And he awoken me to a new level of consciousness, a new level of personal development and growth, challenging my belief systems, highlighting the way that we see the world, and really helped me understand myself at a deeper level and get interested in psychology and neuroscience and a lot of things that are similar in those fields. And although that's not my childhood, I feel like that's a very big pivotal part of my journey and going down the rabbit hole of personal development and also women empowerment. Power is the key thing, is being able to feel like we are in control of our lives. We shape our future. We are in control of our destinies, being able to take that power to ourselves. And so I started in women empowerment going on 13, 15 years now. I'm very passionate about that. Very passionate about personal development as a whole, because I feel like that awareness really shaped my younger 20s, a very an intentional aspect. That James and I, we've been together 13 years now. We've been building our business together for 8 years. And now we've got 2 kids. And there's so many fundamental principles there that we learned from those early 20s that we instill now. My coaching practice kind of took off when I was behind the scenes helping my husband build his business because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was in this transitional period where in my collegiate years, I was very focused on my target of graduating this degree. I was president of my sorority and I was very focused on my leadership elements and instilling qualities and values in the women that I was supporting. And then I was out of college. Now, what do I do with myself? I was trying to figure out my thing. So I felt it was a little easier to attach myself to someone else's goals and dreams by supporting my spouse. And now we were married at this point. I felt like, okay, let me come in here and help him thrive. Because I love the business entrepreneur stuff. I'm very good at it, very good at aesthetics, marketing, branding. Let me support you so you can shine. But it's funny how when we're not being the leading ladies in our own lives, how that can start to create internal struggles where we're not feeling our full range of emotions and all of the spectrum. We're not feeling joyful. We're not feeling happy. We're going through our day to day and we're just not feeling fulfilled. And that was creating this, just gut wrenching. I don't feel like waking up in the morning. And I needed to discover that why. And I needed to go on my own journey of discovering who I am now in this new chapter of my life at 26 years old. What do I want to focus on? And I started diving down some self-love and more empowerment and started reading more stuff around like Brene Brown's work, Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know some of those books. Those are like the bread and butter. And that really set me on a trajectory of living more authentic to myself. And I started posting my journey, some of my own self-love stuff on Instagram, and people connected with it, felt it was authentic and raw. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to build my own self-love challenge. It was a 14-day for free. I'll guide you along some of the same things that I have been doing for myself. And I had 50 women join that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I put together a little landing page and I guided them, put this together. And that slowly transitioned to programs to support women, events to support women, which has now impacted, like you were saying, over 1,000 women's lives. And through some of those elements, and especially the creating of an event called Joyride was a 2-day self-love event. I started realizing there were deeper layers as to why women were coming looking for self-love. On the outside, it seemed like I want to connect with myself. I want to love myself deeper. But what was really emerging was trauma, was wounds, sometimes abandonment, feelings of abandonment, lost, lonely, feeling disconnected from themselves. And that's when I kind of went on this hiatus after I got pregnant with my second son and was like, how can I support the community of women that I have built up to have deeper tools to support them in their lives of healing? Because I did not feel like I was equipped enough to handle those deeper trauma elements and really helping people unpack them and process them so they can heal and become even more empowered.
I love that you shared that because, as I said, I've known you for quite some time now, and you've been a personal coach to me. I actually met you through a couple of the events that you were doing at the yoga studios, and where you had that element where you brought in that self-development piece around self-love, and then there was that. I always felt like it was kind of like a beautiful release of energy through the yin yoga that we would do afterwards. And I always felt such a beautiful connection to that. And I was one of your guests at the Joyride event that you held in Las Vegas back in 2019. I believe that that moment of getting coached by you live changed my life. It literally gave me the clarity that I needed to go after what I wanted to do with my life with more purpose and joy to help other women thrive. And I really, again, owe so much of my growth to you, my joy to being connected to you and your husband, James, because I really I didn't know what I needed when I went to Joyride. I had completely different motive for going up to get coached with you. But you've known me long enough to realize that there were those underlying things that I needed to work through. And so I really appreciated that. So I wanted to get that out of the way and thank you so much for how you've impacted my life, because again, my life has changed so profoundly. Like I can't even, it would be hard. I would be hard pressed to just name off only a couple of things that how it has impacted my life. It's the trajectory of where I am in my life, how I show up in my relationships. I'm a completely different woman than when I first met you. So I just wanted to first thank you before we get started.
Nope, thank you. And I receive that, but I also want to acknowledge like your willingness and openness to unpack some of the things that are more sensitive and personable and raw in front of a group of people too. And you being able to be open to receive coaching and honestly be able to dive deep into yourself, especially in front of a room full of women. That's so challenging to be raw and authentic and vulnerable, but you were willing to go there. And it's also your awareness to see what needed to shift and then to put that into action. And I feel like you've always had this openness. You're always willing to see what else is going on and to dive deep and then to apply it, because that's another element, right? Is yeah, there's an awareness. Now I've uncovered this, but now to apply it and you change your life. I didn't change your life. You did. And I think that's such a huge element too. You give me a lot of credit and I appreciate that and I receive it, but you also deserve a lot of credit for everything that you've created.
Well, I received that. Thank you so much. I really feel that moment was pivotal for me because you did have this group of women that I didn't know. It was also being filmed, and yet you made me feel so comfortable. And that is really a testament of the person that you are, because it really made me feel comfortable enough to share. We had created this relationship for quite some time, and then to be able to come and sit in a room with all of the women that were there and being able to share parts of me that I felt like at one point, why do I need to go back and revisit? But it was so good because that made me realize that if there's the clues from our past that really actually can help us to fuel what we're doing today, like in our future. And I was not realizing that a lot of my past was defining who I was. And when I was able to actually release those things as just being part of the journey, part of my story, and being able to use them now to help other people, it's just, again, it changed me in ways that also have actually helped me to have that better relationship with my husband, because I no longer, you know, I no longer have conversations with him from that wounded self, because that was how I was always showing up to our conversations. And so what happened, I think, within that journey of just that 2-day journey of Joyride was really pivotal, because it helped me to see like, oh, there's so many layers to myself and being able to go through them. And I think that's what you and your guests, like your guest speakers, were able to do. And then one of my most favorite things too was at the end when James took us through the worthiness call, like where we were, saying, repeating after him. And it was just so electric, the energy. And when I drove home that last day, because I was living in Las Vegas at the time too, I remember having this grin on my face and thinking that people probably are looking at me as I'm driving home because I couldn't get rid of this mega smile. But I was just so, I don't know. I felt like I had that purpose. Like I really had that clarity. And it really started me on this trajectory towards what I would ultimately end up doing, and staying in love with self-development and learning about self-love, and being able to look back at that woman in the reflection to say, I love you without conditions. That was what happened for me in our journey together, and you coaching me and bringing me on stage in that day, and just bringing out of me those memories to look at them as a way of, again, they're just parts of the story. They're not defining of who I am. And that's where I started. So that's why I wanted to bring that up, because I really feel like what you're doing now, which I want to get into, is so important for our listeners to really kind of like, I know the woman that you are, really, because you told me parts of your story from in grade school. You've been that person who's always been there trying to make a difference, trying to make that impact, trying to help others. So I definitely feel like I wanted to just set up this part of the conversation with my own experience, because I know you're back and I love it. Like I was saying, you've been out of the group for just a little bit, not because of, and I don't say it in a way where it's like in a negative way. You've got 2 beautiful little boys that I've been so grateful to watch their journey growing up, because you've shared so much. And now you're getting back into where you're going to now support women in such a deeper and more profound way. I really, really love. So with that being said,
Yes.
you, as I said, I believe you've had a really significant impact on many people, not just women, I think men as well, through your self-love and relationship coaching, which I believe that what you've been doing has embodied both of them. Can you share specifically what inspired you to pursue this actual path, and how your experiences have shaped your coaching philosophy?
So the path that I'm currently on within this umbrella of coaching. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about how it started in general.
No, I think we got that.
Yeah. A little bit kind of touching base on some of the things that I talked about was the women that were coming to me for support in various facets. And then also through Joyride, because in Joyride, the 2-day event, like you're very immersed, and it's a small group of women, no more than 30. And I've hosted this now for 4 years. It hasn't happened since 2021. We will come back to it. I promise. It'll be coming back. COVID kind of sent things on a funk, and then did it. And then it was like, oh, is COVID coming back? And then I had the baby. So it's just been a little bit tricky of things, but it's always going to be there for me. That is my, I think one of my greatest creations was creating this 2-day self-love event that bring women together in a very authentic, connective space. And when you have a room full of 30 women, it may seem like a lot or it may seem like little, just depending on on the way you look at it. But within 2 days and a lot of partnering up activities and a lot of authentic connecting, you're able to see each woman in that room and support them and know their story. And that next day, day 2, when you come back, I have a handwritten letter to each and every one of you. And that's because I know who you are. I know your story. I ask questionnaires before you come, and I do my homework on where each person is at in their lives. It's not just, hey, come to my event so I can make whatever $100 on each ticket. That's not it by any means. The purpose is to bring people together and for you to have that space for yourself, because life is always unfolding. We know this. It's always evolving. And a lot of the times we're just trying to play catch up, but very few times are we just be able to create a space where we pause and be present and reflect, because there's so much magic that can happen in the reflection. A lot of the times we are trying to hide from our past. We're trying to bury our past. We just want to move on, move forward, and create a life that we can feel good about with people we want to be with. But a lot of the times those past stuff that we've buried and we've suppressed and we've pushed away and we try to ignore and not even see is there, they come back into our current lives because they're a part of who we are. And I started seeing those things emerge. Just like you were saying, when you came to Joyride, you had a completely different focus, a different intention for why you were there. And then when you came there, what was revealed to you was something deeper and even more impactful and even more meaningful. And it was through Joyride and doing these events to where I got to see women unfold and got to see walls breaking down and see the true essence of what they wanted help with. Was why I was like, I need to become more trauma informed. I want to get proper training and a skill set acquired. I did research on programs for about a year. I applied to one program, didn't get accepted. I went back and took some classes for my undergrad, sharpened up my GPA, took a class in the graduate level to see how I could perform and see if the therapy classes were something that I aligned with and something that I liked. So I did those things. I got my GPA up for my undergrad, took a class. I got 102%. It was a diagnostics class on mental health. I connected with who the professor was, the one that is the program director at UNLV for the therapy. Got to connect with her and ask her all my questions and see if this program really fit and aligned. And I loved it. The class that I took was everyone's fear class in the program. I was like, oh my gosh, this class is so heavy. The book is like this thick. It's so dense. There's so much to learn. And everything I was learning, I was consuming and I was loving. Like, this should be a dry class, but I love this. And so I decided to take another class, fell in love with that, reapplied to the program, and I got in. And it's fundamentally changed how I see things, the way I look at mental health, the deeper calling and purpose that I feel behind it now, especially understanding trauma even deeper, getting to have training on different treatment methods. You read off a few things. NFT, which is a narrative family therapy technique, is all about the way our beliefs shape our story about who we are and how we can rewrite those narratives and those stories. EFT is a emotional focused therapy that includes attachment theory on relationships, which I love. Everything around when you're in an emotional peak state, being able to rewrite some of those things. It's also profound to me to be able to now have the tools and the skill set to help people heal at a more profound level, for the purpose that they become empowered, that they feel the power and the hope to create this life on their terms feeling like I understand myself better. I've processed some of these things from the past. They are no longer triggering me. They are no longer traumatic. I remember them. I know that they were painful, but they are not hindering my ability to be me anymore. And that's one of the common misconceptions, is that once you have trauma, you're damaged goods forever. There's like this narrative for some reason in mental health that trauma will be with you for the rest of your life and all of these things. Yes, in some degree, but it can be processed and healed and tucked away, just like any other memory that has happened to you in your past that wasn't traumatic. And that's what I think is one of the most beautiful things. And it really started supporting women through self-love, because me being able to meet my more authentic self and heal some of my own wounds and feel like I don't need to be on all the time. I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to be poised and this and that and show up in the way that I think you need me to show up. There's so much like handcuffs just taken off when you just feel like, oh my gosh, I've met myself. There's a lot of stuff going on in there, but I embrace it. I see you. I acknowledge you. And it's crazy because when I got the most deeply connected with myself and I was finally able to release a lot of shame around some of the pieces of me, some of my past and things like that, when I felt like I really stepped into that feminine and really embraced her, the next month I was pregnant with my first son. And I think me being able to then show up as a mother in that light, being able to consciously understand myself at a deeper level, I can now show up for my kids in a very intentional and purposeful way. So when you work on yourself, it doesn't just impact you. Just like you were saying, Leslie, like, oh my gosh, now this has impacted my relationship and the people around me and the lives that I'm impacting now. Like it's just a catalyst effect where that one person then is like this ripple to impact so many other people's lives. And I think the biggest thing is knowing that we can heal from our trauma. And there are evidence-based, from research, evidence-based methods and interventions that have shown time and time again that work to heal trauma and process them so that they become a memory that doesn't trigger us any longer.
Yeah. And yeah, I love that. And like I was saying, I use my trauma. I wouldn't say use it, but I guess I actually embrace it, my past, as something that I can help other people with. So if someone is going through something, I'm open. I can talk about things from my past before I couldn't. There were a lot of things that I had to heal from. And I didn't realize that they were still affecting me. But once I did, it was like, oh my gosh, this opened me up to so many things. My mind was opened up. I became, I can't explain it, but I just knew that because I did that, now I was able to just look back whenever I needed to look back and not fear what I was going to find. And if I needed that support, I have like incredible people in my life that I can lean on as I look back. And that's part of like, I think what I learned about the journey of self-love and getting to know is that understanding there are clues from our past that can help us. And we just have to go looking and be okay. And then having that, what I think is a really important aspect to self-care, having that community of people that we lean on, that we can lean on, that if we do take a look back at something that is a little bit traumatic, that we have them to help us through that process. And that is why I think what Joyride was doing for the women that I saw, how when they would be interacted with the coaches, yourself, the other people that you would bring in to talk, that whomever was, not necessarily singled out, but whomever was the focus of a conversation that they would go in a little bit more deeply, that person didn't have to feel like they didn't feel uncomfortable because the environment was made in such a way that you could feel comfortable, because I felt like there was that self-care aspect to it, like that community building was through the entire 2 days. That's part of what I found Joyride to be, was community building. And to me, community is huge. Like that's a huge self-care piece to my puzzle. And anyone that I work with, that community, I always, always, always encourage to have those people in your life that can support you, and that also that you support as well. Like just having really good core. I've been watching your journey because you share a lot of your family life through Instagram. So I've gotten to see your children from when they were babies to growing up to also seeing how you and your family interact. You're wearing a lot of hats. I know that it's sometimes you're juggling a lot because your husband's also a coach. And I know he does a lot of amazing things in different parts of the world. So how do you manage? I just want to know, like, from a self-care aspect, how do you manage the roles, mom, wife, podcaster, therapist in training, and being able to be that coach for the women that you serve? How do you manage those roles and what strategies help you to maintain balance and presence in each area of your life?
Every chapter is different. Every month is different. There's some months where it's way more peaked, the busyness. And there's some months where it's a little bit lower. And thank goodness for that, because if we were sprinting all the time, I don't know if I could make it.
Mm.
There's peaks and valleys with everything for a reason. And so I feel like we find these times where we sprint for a little bit and then we recover. We sprint for a little bit and then we recover. James and I are very into working out. It's part of our lifestyle. And so, like, if you have 3 days on at the gym, take a day off, recover. Recovery is so important. A lot of people talk about burnout in entrepreneurship, leadership, workplace, whatever it may be. I talk about burnout. James and I just led a workshop on burnout and ways to understand it and cope with it. And the stress that we get on our body from all of the roles, it's a good thing because it requires us to grow and get stronger. When you feel like you're almost at your tipping point, that's you being able to be emotionally connected within. I find that instead of balance, it's a harmony thing, right? It's a dance. So when I feel like, okay, I can only take maybe one more day of this, one more hour of this, one more night of all of this moving parts, especially when my husband is out of town, I have to lean on a support system. We are not meant to do this life alone. That is my strategy, basically, is support. We are connective human species for a reason. We thrive in community, we thrive in connection, we thrive in relationships. So why don't we use our relationships around us that we've taken so long to build? I'm very blessed that my husband and I both have our families here. So both the kids have both sets of grandparents and an aunt and uncle that are really supportive. I also have gone through the different things of babysitters and nannies and things like that. So I've got a few people that I can use as resource and support. But the thing that tends to fall on women when we are mothers is the coordinating of all of the things. I've never once seen my husband, and I don't mean to call him out, but I've never once seen my husband schedule a babysitter, a nanny for the week, or coordinate with the grandparents on all of the things. Like, we went to Costa Rica and did a trip together, and I almost lost it because of the anxiety and the nerves around it. But one of our best friends flew in from Iowa to be here and help with the boys. And I had support on every single day for her and the coordinating of things and my son's school schedule and the nap schedule and all of the stuff and the activities. I was like, holy cow, look at how much I do in a week and a day. It's a lot, and it can be a lot. But the recovery with that is so important so that you can keep showing up as your best, keep showing up in a way that you can give. Even if it's not 100% your best, if I'm showing up and I have a little bit fueled for myself so that I can give to my kids, I think that's the most important thing. I structure my life to have support around me. And I think any person wearing multiple hats will understand how important that is. Gone are the days of being too proud to ask for help. Like, it's a necessity. And my husband, between our relationship, between being business owners, having our own thing, also being husband and wife and parents, we treat our relationship like we're still dating. And I think that's so important because there's, this being together with your husband so long, there's evolutions and you're constantly learning more and more about each other. You're constantly being put in times of adversity and trial and periods of growth, and it uncovers and unlocks so many new things. And so it's so important to be dating each other in the perspective of what can we do that's new and exciting? What can we be doing that's different? What can I do to better understand you and support you? All of those aspects of a relationship that were in the areas of the beginning versus like, okay, I just fall asleep next to you at night. And, I see you in the morning and we go about, it's more of like the motions versus the connectedness. And to answer your question, I hope that helped of those strategies of having support built around you so you can do all the things. And then also the strategy of when you wear a lot of hats with your significant other, to treat it as if you're still dating one another. I think that's important for both parties to feel desired, to feel wanted, to feel seen, to feel supportive, that you're taking the time, even if it's not every single night we sit down and have a conversation. But if it's like one night each week where you turn the TV off and you have dinner and you just talk and connect, those are our like favorite times together. And then there's some times where I'm like, babe, I just need to chill and be by myself tonight. And we give each other our space. Like those are times where it's needed too, but we just do a really good job at really communicating things in the now. I had to do a research paper on something recently, and so I chose the family of Schitt's Creek. I don't know if you have ever heard Schitt's Creek. Love this series. It's so hilarious. There's so much complexities, but it's a relationship dynamic when there's like chaos in a relationship and one person just walks out the door. It's like, I can't talk to you. I can't this, da, 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 da. We don't do that. We are really present and supportive for each other, and we don't leave the room. We show up and we talk. And we're really good at really being able to bring those things into the now versus shutting down. And that's something that we've worked on over time. And it's something that's really benefited both of us.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up too, because I've been married now, a long time, over 28 years now. And for the last, I would say 6 years, really, it has started to get better. Really, the last 3 has where it's really benefited with my journey of self-development, self-love, getting into self-care, looking after me. Doing the work for myself, I think was the best thing that I could have ever done. Not having that expectation to put on him that now that I've done the work, you need to do the work. It was really more of me doing the work and showing up as this different person, this more energized, more joyful, more loving person who listens more, who doesn't let herself get into that emotional place where the emotions take over in a conversation, but rather to listen, to hear what his perspective is. And that's taught him something he needed, because I think growing up for him, he needed someone to help him feel like he was being seen and heard, but he didn't really get that when he was growing up. And so in our relationship, I've found he's getting that more from me, and I can see the benefits, because he's now showing up for me in ways where, talking to me about taking the time for myself. Like, if you need this time for yourself, or I'll go to him with my, fears or doubts. And now he can have a conversation with me around it without, shutting it down. Like, now he's really open. And I really love that. I think it's just because I went on this journey for myself. And because I went on this journey for myself and I found so much growth, he then came back and he's now giving me back what I've been giving to him in return. And it was just, I think, when I think back to Joyride, I want to bring it back there for a second, because I remember talking to James about my relationship. And I believe he said something along the lines of, because I was talking to him about how our communication really wasn't there. And he just said to allow him to be himself. And when I think back on that and then I see where we're at today, it makes so much sense. Like, just allowing him to be who he is, and me just going and doing the work for myself. And then it started to have that ripple effect on him, that now he's starting to do things for himself. He's looking for ways to improve on himself. He's kind of copying me with some of the things that I do. So I love that. And I thought it was kind of interesting, because that is what it can do for people in their relationships. They don't have to necessarily demand of another person to do that, because like you said, we're getting to know each other, he and I, just like you and your husband, we're changing all the time based on our experiences outside of our experiences together and the experiences we have together. And so it's being able to, like you said, stay in sync with each other as you go through the journey so that the changes that are happening around you and in your perspective, maybe even that you're doing it together in a way that is still going down the same path together. So I love that you brought that back. Like you're dating. The dating part is so important. Like just because you're married doesn't mean that life now becomes like, oh, you don't date anymore. You don't pursue each other romantically anymore. I mean, I think that's really important. So I'm glad that you brought that back to that.
Yeah,
So thank you.
absolutely. Well, and you even said the togetherness, like you're going to be growing at different rates. And a lot of the time when people start into personal development and they're in a relationship, it tends to be that one person, typically the woman, you see this, is on this trajectory of growth. And then the husband, this isn't a heterosexual relationship, is they don't typically seek out those things. It's like we kind of pull them and we're like, hey, look at this. Look, there's sometimes where it's different and it's reversed a little bit, but typically the woman is growing and then we're bringing them. And then we look at it like, oh, you're not where I am, and then there's this disconnection and there's this tension created in the relationship versus just allowing each other to be on your journeys, but making sure that it's together. And each person's going to be growing at a different rate where you may feel like I'm growing. Okay, now I'm stagnant. I don't know my next move. I'm kind of in a little lull. And then you know what? He's growing. But you're doing it in a way of, yes, you're having your own individual journeys and your own individual paths, but it's a sense of togetherness that we want to create this life together and be in partnership together where I'm supporting your growth. I'm supporting your growth. I'm there for when you've got those lulls or those adversities. I'm there for when you're wanting to pursue something and I'm in your corner and we're talking about it and we're strategizing about it. And I'm there when you've got that moment and you're like, oh, it's those separate paths, but they're both together because you're supporting each other in those chapters. And then there's times when you're not in sync. And I know we all feel when we're not in sync with someone. And even if you've been in a relationship for a long time, there's periods of in syncness and there's periods of time where you're just not. And then there's days where I look at James and I'm like, do you feel that? I feel like we're not on the same wavelength. I say that. I feel like we're not on the same wavelength. Do you feel that? And he's like, yeah, I feel that. I'm like, why? And all I ask is, why do you think that is? Like, you feel it, I feel it. Why do you think that is? And then he'll share, like, maybe he's got a lot on his mind because of certain proposals or certain projects coming up. And then I say, well, I've got all of this because of school and the kids. And I just feel like I'm doing a lot and you're not really present. And I'm just using that as an example, not saying it's his problem there of responsibility, but we acknowledge that we're out of that wavelength because we feel it. And then we talk about why that could be. And then we share, okay, what can we do to get back to being more in sync and being more connected? And then it leads to that connection time. And that could be defined in many different ways, whether it is a date night, whether it is time in the evening without any distractions together, whether it is more physical intimacy, whatever it may be, we talk about it. We just bring the awareness around it. And I think that's the fundamental thing that has changed our connectedness in the relationship is the awareness. We're each doing that level of inner work, you can call it self-discovery, personal development, that just heightens the awareness about ourselves. So that way we can bring that to our relationship and our relationship can ever evolve too. And I feel like when you're on that same trajectory and that same wavelength, it's destined for partnership forever. And fundamentally, that's what we want. And we want for our family and we want for our kids is to be in partnership forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have one last question for you. You have achieved a lot. Like you've been in this industry, although you've said 15 years, I really feel like because I've known you for so long and the stories you've shared with me, it's been a lot longer. I know that I believe that entrepreneurship was really in your genes. So what advice would you give to women who are looking to whatever that is? Because I have a lot of entrepreneurial women that listen to the show. So what would be your motivating, I guess, mantra or something that you could motivate them to really actually like go after their dreams. Because I think a lot of the time, like you were saying, and I've even, talked to other women, that it can be really hard to go after what we want when we have those hats that we wear, if we're mom, if we're wife, if we're a businesswoman, if we're doing XYZ, whatever that is, to actually go after what we want. Like you were saying, at 26, you decided, you know what? I've been doing this for so long. I need something for me. So what would you say to that woman who might be that 26-year-old woman, or even 36, 56, whatever age she is, to actually take that step, that leap of faith?
Well, there's a few things that come to mind, but the first thing is around awareness is we're all really good at talking ourselves out of things. We're really good at highlighting the things as to why it won't work out, why we're too busy, why we shouldn't start this, why the fear, why the this, why the that. There's a lot that comes in because it's fear and we're just trying to protect ourselves. So know when that comes in, it's just trying to protect you. But that sense of protection doesn't allow you to grow. So if there's something you're really wanting to go after, and it's going to require growth, it's going to require to get you outside of your comfort zone, know that that feeling is inevitable. You have to get better at quieting that noise because it will always be there. Because if you're a growth-oriented person, especially if you're wanting to get into entrepreneurship, there is always going to be a new level. There's always going to be a new comfort zone to get out of. And that self-talk, that fear-based is going to come in over and over and over again. But the beautiful thing is you get better at combating it. Same way healing trauma, creating that narrative, you are creating the narrative of your own self, your own life. I thrive in the uncomfortable of, oh my gosh, this is really nerve-wracking. I don't know if I could do it. Like talking myself off the ledge. I almost like have to take my shoe off and throw it over the wall. So I have to go get something, if that makes sense. I gotta put it out there in the world. I gotta tell people. I gotta post about it. I gotta put it up on the calendar. I gotta set a deadline. I gotta set a due. Whatever it is, I have to do that. So that way that there is like a shooting target, there's skin in the game, or else I will stay in the shadows. I'll play small. I gotta put that burn in it. I don't know what else to call it, but that helps me so that I show up. So you can call it accountability. You could call it throwing the shoe over the wall, or, the diamond ring, whatever's really important to you, and to where you got to jump over the wall to go get it. Now, crap. Now I have no other choice. Mm-hmm. Even as something as simple, or it's not simple, but when I was deciding to go on the route to grad school and applying for it, I was like, maybe I'll just keep this secret and I'll put it, in case I don't get in. I was like, gosh, dang it. But then if I do get in, it'll be so much more rewarding and so much more like being able to applaud it and to celebrate it if I had people around me that knew I was going for this versus keeping what I'm working on a secret. So I shared about it with my family and friends. I shared about it on social. That's always like the most nerve-wracking one. And I really started showing it and I really started talking about it more. And that helped me feel more motivated, even though it was nerve-wracking all the time. When you're out of the limelight, when I was in more of my motherhood roles, and mainly in motherhood, I feel like all the time, it was really hard to put myself back out there and to be a focal point. And I was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like being looked at the focal point. I've been used to my husband, James, being that. And I've even told him recently, I'm like, this is feeling uncomfortable. Something that used to be comfortable of being a spotlight, talking, focused on in any way. Now I'm like, share, get the light off of me as fast as possible. So those are, it's going to come up in different ways. And even if you've taken a break, it's not like you're ever starting from ground zero, ever, really, because you've got your past coming into this present moment that has always set you up for where you're at right now. And so I guess the biggest advice is knowing that inner self-talk is always going to come because it's fear-based and your body, your mind is trying to protect you. It's not going to let you grow. So you got to take Whatever's valuable to you, chuck it over the wall so that you're forced to climb over and go get it if you really want it. And I guarantee you, if it's on your heart, it's something that you really want, because when it's on your heart, it's not going away. You might shove it down and push it away, but here it comes back 6 months later because you're unfulfilled in what you're doing. And it's saying, hey, remember me? You still want this. I know you want this. I know it's nerve-wracking. Okay, where do I start? Da, 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 da. And you start going down the list. But at least you're going down the list of thinking of all the things to make that happen. So, and then support. Of course, I mean, you've talked about the community that's been so important to you. Entrepreneurship community is great. Coaching support is great. Having that skin in the game is so important. Even though it's also uncomfortable, it's going to help you show up as a better version of yourself. And you're going to suck at it in the beginning. It's going to really not look good. It's not going to feel good. But when it does start to feel easier, you know that you're getting better. And then there'll be a new level to tackle and you'll feel the feels all over again.
That's so
never
true.
ending. It really
absolutely.
is. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda. I have absolutely loved having you on today. Yeah, like I said, it's been certainly our connection has reshaped my path. I believe that when we really lean into, like you were saying, into who we are, I like to call it getting into your story, that it has the power to not only inspire yourself, like you were saying, just do it. If there's find something to make yourself do it, but it has the ability to inspire other people in your life. It has that ripple effect. And so I just want to say thank you, because I've been waiting to have you on the show for quite some time. And I'm just so glad that you found the time to be with me today. So thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate you having me.
And to our listeners, remember that each story shared and every piece of advice offered today is a beacon guiding you toward a more fulfilled and purposeful life. Harness these lessons, reflect on them, and consider how they might illuminate your own path. If you're inspired by Amanda's journey and want to explore how her coaching can aid you in your own growth, check the show notes for all the ways that you can reach out to her. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Everyone has heard about the U.S. space program, but what is actually going on at NASA? Get the real story in 4 minutes or less with the NASA Daily podcast from Electricast. Join astronauts and researchers as they conduct groundbreaking experiments, work on the International Space Station, and reach for the stars. NASA Daily, your cosmic update.
Electricast.
Hi, I'm Geraldine Glass, and I'm excited to share a new healing music offering, an extended version song called Joy Reboot, a unique fusion of pop, classic, rap, soundscapes, and funk to inspire collaboration and bring unity through sound. For us, Joy Reboot is music medicine, out now with Electricast Records.
Electricast.